to do everything I can to reduce pesticide use, to calm the public fears.
I just don't want to use it in a way that threatens the health of these fields or threatens the lives of all of the creatures that live out here, or obviously threatens my or your good health.
It was a concern for myself, for my family, because we're the ones that are highest, most likely to be affected by it because of the level of exposure that we have.
Growers don't want to go out and spray. It's no fun to get all dressed up in a hot suit and get covered by poison spray. You're not going to find many fans.
Nobody likes to spray, and especially nobody likes to spray with the hot stuff.
Some pests have a genetic composition that allows them to resist pesticides. And right now with apples, miticides. We only got 2 miticides left that are really any good anymore. We've gone through I don't know how many miticides over the last 2 decades.
Growing apples in the northeast region of the United States is a difficult task. Confronted by consumer pressures, narrow profit margins, and a shrinking arsenal of pesticides, apple growers find themselves turning to new techniques under an old name, Integrated Pest Management. Integrated pest management is an approach to growing which stresses better pesticide management and, in many cases, pesticide alternatives.
This name arose only within the last, let's say, 20 years to try to describe a philosophy that was somewhat of a departure from the normal calendar spray philosophy.
You are committing yourself to disrupt the natural environment as little as possible in the effort to grow a marketable crop. You basically resort to chemical use as just a very last choice for controlling insects and pests. The only way you can do that is to really understand what's going on out there.
Trying to understand better what the life cycles, more closely what the life cycles are of these insects, these critters.
We want to create the insect environment and get everything alive and living here and create balances.
The first stage of the first level of IPM involves integration of techniques for monitoring pests and natural enemy abundance, so that you can then, and also monitoring weather, so that you can then predict accurately if and when you need to make a pesticide treatment against pests. The sole interference or human intervention in first stage, first level IPM, is the use of pesticide.
That's the deal with IPM. If it's not there, there's not much point in spraying for it. And if it's not there in numbers that are going to do you damage, there's not much point in spraying for it.
There are various monitoring tools that are used for this. We have visual traps for plant bugs, sawflies, apple maggot flies, leaf miners, and so forth. A lot of visual monitoring of the fruit and the foliage for incidents of pest injury and natural enemies.
And the pheromone traps are traps that have been developed for specific insect pests, and they're baited with a lure that attracts the male of the species. So you can keep track of populations and when the generations are emerging and time your treatments better.
Accurate monitoring of pest populations can dramatically reduce the number of sprays needed.
I'm convinced that 2 sprays, maybe 3 or 4 by a first stage IPM grower is all that you need to produce 95% clean fruit. Trying to get that last 4 or 5% results in another batch of pesticide use.
The problem, of course, is the market and its demand for extra fancy grade apples. Only for some growers will 95% clean fruit be an adequate trade-off. Fortunately, more advanced IPM techniques may raise the percentage of clean fruit even further.
When we come to the second stage of IPM, then we're trying to integrate various methods of managing pests, not using just pesticides, but also behavioral, biological, and cultural means of pest management, in addition to pesticide. What we do in apples is we apply pesticide during April and May against the key early season pests, plum, curculio, sawfly, plant bugs, fruit worms. And then when those pests are finished with their activity by mid-June, then we don't apply any more pesticide in the orchard at all. Then we go in with behavioral, cultural, and biological means of managing pests for the remainder of the growing season. Right now, second stage IPM on apples in Massachusetts is definitely a research operation.
It may still be research, but it's definitely on-farm research.
If you just stick with small research plot on a research farm, well, you're not going to get off the ground because that's not implementation. That's not the real world. Well, that's half of the real world. So there's definitely risks at stake on everybody's part when you go to a larger, more meaningful scale.
We volunteered our block to participate in this, to help him out and also get some experience of our own. I have not sprayed that block during the month of June for 2 years, or since May for the entire season for 2 years, and the fruit has been very good. We're very well satisfied with it. The second stage IPM block compares, it does as well or better as our normally sprayed blocks, and of course it saves money and reduces pesticides. We begin then with two kinds of behavioral methods for managing key pests of the fruit in the summer. One of these involves surrounding the perimeter of the orchard with odor-baited red spheres to intercept immigrating apple maggot flies before they can enter the orchard interior. And they are caught on these traps. The traps are scented, and they are caught on these traps and never enter the orchard.
So that the orchard isn't sprayed at all for apple maggot fly or for any other insect pests after the end of May or the beginning of June. It did get sprayed for curculio and early codling moth early in the season.
We've had a lot of luck with these. We don't put on any sprays in the entire orchard, 80 acres, for apple maggot. And we get no injury. We realized in this orchard that the apple maggot fly was coming in one specific area, mostly. We started putting more traps out just in that particular area. And we put enough traps out so we felt we were comfortably trapping all the flies that were coming in. This will be our 4th year we've done it, and it's been very successful.
If some of the fruit is let fall, especially on early varieties, some of those flies can build up within the orchard, and therefore this technique probably won't work. But with an orchard whose varieties mainly are Macintosh to later varieties, I think this technique has great promise. Now there's another method of behavioral control that we're using, and that is aimed at moths, Lepidopterus larvae. And that is called mating confusion or mating disruption. And this involves twisting some little dispensers that look like pipe cleaners, 4 to a tree, early in April.
They send out so much of this artificial pheromone, which is a sex attractant,
that the moths coming into the orchard cannot find female moths to mate with. So there's no mating, no eggs, no larvae, no damage.
Over here, we find that today I haven't found any of this red-banded leaf roller in the trap. Across the street, I haven't been over there today, but normally where there isn't any pheromone in the trees, we find a lot of the insect in the trap.
Those are behavioral methods that I just mentioned, the trapping and the mating disruption. An important cultural method, one of the integrated approaches, involves cultural management, and that concerns removing host trees within 100 yards all around the perimeter of the orchard. And by doing this, you hope you're cutting down on the immigration of moth pests into the orchard, particularly an insect called the codling moth. And so far, this has been done in 18 orchards in Massachusetts in the last 2 years, and it's done a super job. We have almost no codling moths entering our commercial orchards.
Another cultural technique is used to help hold the fruit on the tree until it's ready to harvest.
We summer prune, which breaks open the canopy in the top of the tree to let more light in to get the color on the fruit earlier, which is effective. It's an effective way of getting the fruit to color up before it gets ripe, so you can pick it at the right time. The summer pruning is very time-taking. It's labor intense.
There's a biological method. The biological accents the buildup of natural enemies, predators and parasites, so that these can proliferate in the absence of insecticide after June. There's no insecticide after June, so that gives a chance for predators and parasites to begin to flourish.
The predator buildup in this orchard has been very strong. We've got all kinds of ladybugs and lacewings and predator mites coming.
Now, predators and parasites are unable to control the fruit-injuring pests like apple maggot, collie moth, and leaf rollers, or curculio, but they do a great job, if they're allowed to do so, against foliar-injuring pests like mites, aphids, leaf miners, and leaf hoppers. They do a beautiful job. And one of the important natural enemies that does build up is spiders. And right here we see a spider in this orchard. Now, if this orchard had been sprayed recently or would be sprayed in the near future, that spider would be dead. There'd be no chance for that spider to provide biological control.
This is a good example of integrated control, and specifically we're dealing with green aphids in this case, which build up.
The probability is extremely high that you're going to have two species of predators come along and eat these aphids. Both of these predators are flies that lay their eggs near the aphid colony.
If you're coming through as a scout, you would count down 7 leaves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and if you see aphids and no predators, you would treat. And in this case, because we counted down 7 leaves, these aphids are all black. They've been eaten by the little fly larvae on here. We tell the grower not to treat. And in addition, we have on this leaf a ladybird beetle larvae, coccinellid larvae. It's a beetle larvae that's feeding on this side on the aphids, and then of course on the other side there's another one feeding on an aphid colony here also.
Every year we get aphids, but they always seem to disappear on their own. They balance out, and that's been going on for years. I haven't had to put on anything for aphids for probably 5 years.
I haven't sprayed for aphids in 10 years. It's not necessary. But we didn't know that until IPM came along and showed us that we didn't need to spray for them at all.
Another biological method, still highly experimental, addresses the increasing resistance of certain pests to synthetic sprays.
Now, on top of that, we have releases of predators of mites that we're doing in certain orchards. Not this particular one, but in another set of orchards, we're releasing predatory mites to build up populations of mites beyond the natural levels.
Immunity in pest populations is a big issue. Mite control is one great example where we've lost a number of miticides in the last few years. We're left with very few on the market.
3 or 4 years ago, we were finding that the mites were not responding to the available miticides, that we just were getting a buildup of resistance, so we had to find an alternative. And so getting involved with Ron, and we've, in fact, in this block, have not used a miticide now in 2 years. We released predators last year, and we used to have no ground cover. We used to keep the orchard floor bare, and now all we're doing is going in and trying to eliminate poison ivy as it creeps back, again, for the sake of the pick-your-own customers.
Since this approach is still very much in the research stage, a more concrete non-biological technique can be used to battle mites.
One of these methods is using oil. Horticultural oils where you suffocate the eggs of the pest or the living stages of the pest, and nothing can resist suffocation. No life can resist cutting off of oxygen.
Another set of tools for the grower who wants to encourage predator populations is the new group of bioinsecticides.
I'm putting on dipel, which is for green fruitworm, and it's a bacteria that gets into their digestive system and stops it. It is so specific that there's very little else that it hurts. It doesn't hurt any of the predators. It doesn't hurt people.
So this bioinsecticide, I think, and this whole new wave of bioinsecticides is going to help us move away from our dependency on synthetic insecticides, because it's going to allow us to use a lot of natural enemies.
Integrated pest management has made a lot of progress toward insect control, but it also has a long way to go.
We have one of the most difficult pest complexes to manage of any place, and the plum curculio is the real clinker.
They say it makes a distinctive sound. I almost think I can hear them when I walk through the orchard. I've gotten so used to looking for them. Last year, with a very heavy set of fruit, we got very good control with 2 sprays of Imidam, which is the most we've ever used to attempt to control curculio.
In our organic block, we have a situation where we've got a double row of Jersey Macs right along the hedgerow. The Jersey Mac is an early ripening variety of apple, and that's where we come in with pyrethrum and zap them.
Although organic sprays offer some control of plum curculio, they may not be the safest approach given the amount that needs to be applied.
The natural pesticides such as rotenone may not be as ecologically sound as some of the synthetic chemicals.
And it's not good. They're not good sprays to use. They're not bad for people, but they're not good for the orchard.
Especially when applied so many times. Very costly and leaves a lot of residue. I don't think that's an environmentally sound approach.
IPM has made significant progress in the control of insects, but major inroads have been made into disease control as well.
Apple scab is probably the severest disease attacking apples in the Northeast.
This is a hygrothermograph, and what it does is it measures scab infection periods. And with the materials we have today, we don't have to go on a preventive basis. What we can do is wait and see if we actually had an infection period, and then come in afterwards and spray. They're about $280, I believe. But if you save one scab spray, that's $280 right there in material. So it's well worth the investment.
a whole lot of stuff has come out in the last few years. One is that it's been discovered that the spores are not released at night in the dark. That is important in part because deposited scab spores are killed by direct sunlight. So if you have a good wetting rain that will release the spores, they get attached to the leaves. It's followed immediately by direct sun. Ma Nature's done the job for you.
One of the things that we do when you get a long dry period and a buildup of mature spores ready to explode when they get wet, we go out and water. We go out with our sprayers and water on a nice sunny day, release the spores. They pop into the air and they die because there's not a long enough wetting period for them to infect the leaf. So it's sort of tricking them into thinking that there's going to be an infection period.
In the last couple of years, much more has been discovered about how the scab spores, which are the source of infection in the following year, what happens to them as they're overwintering on the orchard floor, and ways of indexing the inoculum pressure for the following year have been developed, so that this fall I'll be able to judge what the inoculum pressure for scab next spring is, and engage in various mechanical controls, shredding the leaf litter, applying urea, which is just nitrogen, to the leaf litter to break it down faster.
One of the things that we're working on this year that we're composting along with our scab program. By doing this, we're hoping to reduce the scab spore activity at this time of year in the spring. In the fall, after the leaves are completely on the ground, they've dried up on the tree, fallen, we spread the compost on top of them, separated them both up together, and it laid the compost and the leaves back down like a rug. The seppi did it. Mixed with the compost through the winter, and mixing with the rain this spring, the decomposition of that leaf is happening very quickly. When you compost and put nutrition in the ground, you create an environment for the microorganisms to live.
Not all growers, of course, can afford the time and labor it takes to make and apply compost.
To use compost effectively in a large orchard is a very difficult thing. It's a lot of compost.
But for those growers who can find or create a market for low-spray apples and thereby receive a higher price for their fruit, the additional time and labor may become affordable.
That's one of the fantastic things about these direct markets is consumers have learned to accept a lot of these cosmetic kind of problems. And also we, of course, receive a much bigger piece of the money that someone spends.
The same quandary exists in disease control as in insect control. The traditional organic approach may not be the best approach.
It's the quantity in which you have to use, the adverse effects on the soil. It's a protectant, and it means every time before rain you have to spray during that primary scab season. So you live a very stressful life, and I think it causes stress within the orchard.
So I would tend to support Amy in using something like Rubigam, which as far as we know is really very environmentally sound, and perhaps more so than using 40 or 60 or 70 or 80 pounds per acre of sulfur in a season.
A long-term approach toward disease control is the development of new apple varieties.
And then you have disease-resistant trees, so you don't have to spray fungicides, so you're not disrupting any of your natural enemies with fungicide sprays, which often occurs in commercial orchards with certain fungicides. Liberty, Freedom, Prima, Priscilla, Surprise, those are the ones I have. Nobody ever heard of most of them. But some of these are proving out to be real good. Liberty, for example, is proving to be an extremely good apple. It doesn't fall on the ground like Macintosh. It's a beautiful red apple. It has a lot of Macao parentage in it.
Customers like it. It sets annually without requiring thinning.
Liberty also has some resistance to mildew and fire blight, so that has multiple resistance, and that's good. A lot of the cultivars available don't have that. They're only resistant to scab.
As far as disease-resistant trees, getting them has been my problem. Hopefully we have some coming this spring, but it's been 3 years that we've been trying to get a hold of the disease-resistant. That means you're looking at 1995, 96 before you're going to start coming out from under it. And that's assuming that you've got the $5,000 an acre to replant.
The grower has a big investment. When you put a tree in the ground, you're making a commitment. It's almost like a marriage. You better have pretty good confidence in what you're doing. And so far, the knowledge about the growth habits and the productivity of disease-resistant trees is still in its infancy.
In the meantime, IPM continues to develop methods of pest and disease control which are of immediate benefit. But further progress depends on support by both growers and the general public.
Whoever it is that needs to support the funding of the research that's going on and the demonstration projects that are going on in integrated pest management, that should be a combination of government monies and also our own money. Now, for example, the strawberries, we pay $25 an acre for the scouting, and I think that's great. That's the way the future should be. We share the cost because we're going to share the benefits.
Integrated Pest Management offers consumers the assurance that the fruit they eat is safe.
A lot of current interest is being expressed with consumers in residues on the fruit. So a lot of the IPM research and also our research is directed towards limiting insecticide applications in the later part of the season so as not to wind up with a residue on the end product, the apple.
We stop spraying very far in advance. I'd say our last spray goes on about the beginning of August, and that's something that really does seem to mean something to people.
IPM offers farmers, of course, a way to deal with a whole set of interrelated concerns.
Farmers are far more interested in seeing a reduction in the use of pesticides than is the average person that's living in this country. We have economic reasons, we have our own health reasons, we have our marketing reasons, we have lots of incentive